What is going on, everybody? It is January 17th, 2024, day log episode over NQ. Might be a shorter video today, just not feeling as well. And hopefully you're on the live stream today and you're able to sit through it and kind of get the real-time explanation to why price was unfavorable. It wasn't high probability, at least in my eyes. And it was a really good session to learn basically when not to trade in weighing options and decisions, because as an analyst you're constantly doing that. You're constantly weighing decisions and options and seeing which side is favorable with enough information and criteria to get you into the market. So today I was looking at NQ, or I was looking at YM and dollar index. I was looking at the relationships between NQES and YM, and nothing was really agreeing with each other. I couldn't get a real clear view on dollar index either. And even looking at the daily chart, this screams low probability. You need to put away in your journal these type of conditions, especially on the daily chart, because if you have basically 4 indecisive days, it's screaming at you that this is very low probability, especially when you can see both sides of the board, right? And that was kind of the problem I was running into today, is because I was still seeing a possibility of the upside, but I could also see the downside. So to me, it just kind of screamed to do nothing. And the daily time frame is letting us know that. It's very clear. It's the hard part is just staying away from this, because as a day trader, you want to sit down every single session. You may, be a newer trader and believe whatever other people say is, you can trade every single day. For me, that's not that's not true at all. You can't be trading every single day. I don't think that you will have great success over time trying to do that. In my opinion, if you can weed out the days that are low probability and just wait for the days that are high, I mean, it takes so much less stress, off of you, and you're able to just pick the days that are easy. This is a hard day, and I knew that coming into it. So looking at the 4-hour time frame, we reached down into this BISI here, which is a reclaimed fair value gap, because we've already gone into it once before. So it can still be utilized again, even if we go into it. It's just a reclaimed. And the fact that we have relative equal highs resting above us, we have a lot of buy side liquidity. It wearies me to want to short this, because knowing these concepts, obviously we are going to look for smooth edges to be made jagged. And these are very clean, smooth edges. There's certain things that would waver the idea of this thing going towards the buy side liquidity, and it may leave it for another point in time, which would be obviously a shift on the higher time frames. Dollar index continues to move higher. If everything else aligns, then this thing can move off lower, and that will be left for another point. But since we're relatively close to it, I'm still sticking with the idea of this possibly being an option. So it depends how far away you move from a pool of liquidity. If we displaced 100, 200 points away from here, then obviously that's not a viable option. Then we'd have to start looking for lower targets. But since we're in the relative scope of it, it may be still, an option. We took out sell side liquidity underneath this low here. And I was aiming towards that in the session. Not we took anything off of it, but it was a good study to watch the open and where to look for price to draw towards. And after the open, it was just sloppy price action. It was very difficult to read what it was really trying to do. I think today there was some really good longs on the lower time frames. And this is where hindsight can give you that false sense of reality, where if you're back testing, you'll be like, man, I could have entered in here, could have done this. But in real time, we were weighing the options and the decisions and seeing how I could have seen the short. I could have easily have seen the shorts as much as I could have seen the longs. In hindsight, the longs are super easy. And if you took it, there's nothing wrong with that. But in my eyes today, it was just a little bit more difficult to trust that and to go along with it. So you can see in here, before we drove higher and before I show the lower time frame entries to go long, this is what price looked like. So we dropped off lower. There's a shift in market structure here. Yes, we're taking out sell side liquidity, and that's a kind of a reason why if you did go long. But to me, it could have just been another shift in market structure. price returns in a premium and sells off the fair value gap. But with the information that I had with dollar index, YM and ES, and even the higher time frame on NQ, I couldn't trust the shorts or the longs. Nothing was high probability to me. So that's where discipline comes in, and you're electing to just do nothing. It's a very hard thing to do as a newer student because you don't know when not to do anything. And you'll learn that through just time and experience and probably a lot of losses, because you'll start to learn, okay, this is when I shouldn't do anything. And that's particularly you. You have to tune into yourself. Of course, there's general rules and things that you should pay attention to when it comes to not doing anything. But for me, if I can't see one side clearly, it's telling me to do nothing and just sit still and wait for another day where it is a little bit more clear. And you can even see in here, I'm highlighting it. So when we go down to lower time frames, this old SIBI ended up acting, excuse me, as a inversion fair value gap. So if you extend it out to your right, became an inversion. I was highlighting a lot of these things I'm going to go over in the real time live session, but there was just multiple reasons why I didn't want to go long in here. I'm not somebody to really pick bottoms, especially when we're extremely bearish, at least at that moment in time. Picking the bottom in here just didn't seem high probability to me. And I was still looking at the option of this thing possibly going lower. So I didn't want to get caught trying to go long if this thing ended up going lower. So in hindsight, this is going to seem like, man, really easy. I could have been in here doing all of this, but it's the reason why you need to go back through your live session thoughts and what you were thinking in that real moment versus hindsight. This is the bullish breaker here. We have a low, a high, a lower low, then a higher high. This last up close candle is the bullish breaker. Right underneath that is a small fair value gap here. Rejected off of, came up into the SIBI, dropped off lower into fair value gap, breaker again. Displaced higher, old SIBI becomes an inversion once we close above it, drops back down into it. What's coupled inside of that would be the fair value gap here to target the SIBIs that are resting above price. So even though there isn't really a lot of buy side, you can utilize this on any time frame. So even though this buy side liquidity pool got tagged, you can target higher premiums, fair value gaps, any PD array that's inside of a premium or a discount relative to what you're doing. You can target that. So that's where you either pull off partials or pull off your full extension of your position. And I wanted to make note in here. We went over this in a live session. This is the 9:50. Let me just say this in New York local time is 10:50 to 11:10. This is Central Time. It's my time. So this is the macro, the end of the silver bullet macro. So went over that in real time. Really cool to see it play out. Hindsight, again, you could say, man, you know, it could have been really easy to go long in the macro. It just could have been as easy, at least in real time, for this to drop off lower, and it could have sold short. So I put a huge emphasis on not beating yourself up in hindsight, because everything's different in real time. So that's it for NQ today. Let's go over dollar index real quick. I'm going to wrap up the video. Try to not make this too long. I don't like the closure of today, to be honest with you. It's just really a lot of indecisiveness this week on the higher time frames. So you have to be very, very short-minded. Let's put it this way, short scalping minded this week rather than holding on for a daily expansion. So we have a fair value gap in here that formed, which is residing inside of the SIBI. So I don't love that particular closure. If I'm looking for lower prices, weekly time frame is still the parent, and we have rejected off of the mean threshold of this bear shorter block. So from here, I wouldn't want to see it revisited again. It would really need to drop off lower. And when we move into the lower time frames, again, this is the same thing with NQ. These lows on dollar are too clean to me. I would elect to believe they're not. The algorithm is not going to leave those in place. It very well could, but I'm still electing to lean on that side where I want to see a one-sided draw to the sell side, and same thing reverse for NQ. I want to see higher prices into the buy side liquidity. So if I can see dollar index clearly dropping off, willing to move lower into the sell side, it will make it really, really easy for NQ to long it, because now you have this as confluence and in support. That dollar index wants to move lower, and then we can long NQ pretty confidently. And that's how you're using intermarket relationships. You're constantly weighing it, looking at all the different asset classes and seeing where they're potentially heading towards. And when they're in line with each other, it's really fun, easy trading. And that's what you need to be looking for. If you can place yourself in those environments, then you're making your life 10 times more easy, rather than you trying to fight indecisiveness, higher time frame narrative. And that's where we're at right now. So you need to wait for more information. And that's the hard part, obviously, is waiting and discipline, patience. So that's going to be it for today. I will be live tomorrow, 15 minutes before the open. I appreciate everybody tuning in, new viewers. Until tomorrow, good luck and good trading, everybody. Be safe.